You know, I'll be honest. It's hard to be an the good undercovers and some of the newer undercovers that I've seen. It's hard to take away your years and decades of experience as a law enforcement person and set them aside to become an undercover and interact in an environment that you didn't grow up in
Right.
those in that culture per se, and it's difficult, and they did grow up in it culturally, and they can sort of pick up off on small cues that you don't know you're giving off that just scream law enforcement. And maybe I'll give you an example. I was at a restaurant, and there were individuals that clearly by their appearance were involved in gang activity, and I was sitting there with my wife, and she's like, we're looking at each other, and they're looking at me, and she goes, they know who you are, huh? And I said, well, not exactly who I am because we don't know each other, but they know what I am. And she goes, and then as we go to the mall and do things, she's like, they just see you. And I'm like, yeah, it's weird. We just see each other, and it's because we get used to seeing each other in other environments. And so it's interesting. My wife would pick up on it, and she goes, oh, that person recognizes you, huh? I'm like, well, not because we know each other, but we both know who we are.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, there's a
fascinating.
famous restaurant here in New York City in East Harlem called Rayo's, right? And people have tables there for years by the night. But it was an interesting place because all the cops and all the mafia, all the gangsters would all eat together. They'd all eat together in
Right.
this Italian restaurant. I think it was even featured in The Sopranos. I think one of the actors was in The Sopranos who owned or waited at Rayo's and all Frankie Pecolano. I forget his last name, but that's where they all knew, and you could just walk in, and you know who was a cop, you know who was a gangster,
Right.
it was kind of, but no one harmed anybody with that because I was just like, this is business. We're out here eating. We're all eating at the best
Right.
restaurants, the best
Yeah,
Italian
that's a
food.
great point, Linda, because my wife goes, did it make you nervous? And no, not really. I'm not here for them, and and they realize they're not here for me. We can coexist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny as my wife she goes, why do you always say hi to them? Like, what do you mean? And she goes, you'll like nod or give them a slight wave. And I said, oh, yeah, once we identify each other, it sort of just breaks the ice on, hey, how's
It's
it
a
going? Hey,
it's
good.
a weird mutual respect. It
Yeah.
just it's really odd, yeah. And it
Yeah.
also, I think, subconsciously or otherwise, you're kind of putting them on notice.
Right. I
I
want them
don't,
to know I see them too. Right.
yeah.
Yeah, everybody sees it.
Right.
One of the things I had to ask from a legal point of view, because you don't need any court approval for a tickle, but you do need a warrant for a wire, and you do need a warrant. I assume do you need for geofencing? Do you need a warrant
Right.
for that? So that there's
Yes.
different aspects of this operation that for those who are watching, you may need warrants for, but you don't need it for this tickle the wire, which I love better than the bump. But because the
Yeah.
bump implies a physical, reaction.
Well,
Uh,
and the tickle the wire may not always be an overt, person to person thing. We may do things that are a little more subtle initially, and in order to elicit conversation. If it's not happening, then we may ramp up. And you see, they in this case, they do a couple things, right? He sends her a text, and
mhm.
and that's because she might have, obviously you see that she does what they want initially, and then she goes a little silent, and they were hoping to expedite a few things, I'm sure. And so, hey, let's re-engage and let her know we're still here. Make sure she didn't forget about us.
Yep.
And it sounded like it escalated a little bit in those
Right.
follow-ups, right?
Right. Yeah. It should. And that would have been my nature as well. Yeah, you would definitely need a Title III affidavit for the wiretaps and the geofence. The geofence is a product of the pings, and the geofence can be done through mapping and software programs,
Okay.
external. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Interesting. I thought we should all know. Since we're learning, we might as well all learn
There,
together.
there was, I always think of you, and I think cell phones and all of that geolocation stuff. In this case, less critical because of some of the other evidence, and it also went to the underlying crime, where you have the Prius, which is the vehicle of choice for assassins, as I understand it.
Right.
You get the Prius traveling from Fort Lauderdale / North Miami on up to Tallahassee. So there's a lot of that data that tracks their travels.
Well, and they
Not
did
going to
use cell phone evidence for those individuals. They showed that their cell phone evidence went down into Tallahassee. Yeah, they
Yeah.
did. They did use it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
may not make it to the
Interesting.
trial because it doesn't tend to prove an element that's not already proven through statements, but it
right.
was used investigatively.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I tell you what, this is really informative. I mean, this is really an interesting insight into why these happen, who you pick, how it goes down, what you do if it's
Right.
a fail. I mean, what an education our viewers are getting from you, Professor
Right.
Easter.
It was a lot. There would have been a lot of planning. When I ran a couple undercover operations for myself, not like fancy TV stuff, but enough that we do have rehearsals, and we would go through scenarios and practice what would be said from the target, and let the undercover practice how to respond. Especially as investigators, we would tend to know the subjects better and sort of things that they may or may not say, and things that we really want
Yeah.
the undercover to bring out that we need as elements for our case.
Oh. All right.
I think of some of the deep cover, like Serpico was based on a real person,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
The one that Johnny Depp played, that character also based on a real person. You remember which one that
Right.
was? What was the name of that one? Help me, Johnny
All
Depp.
right. All right. I mean, now here
Donnie
we go.
Brasco. Donnie Brasco.
Johnny Brasco, right.
Those are life-changing, experiences. How do people get into that? I mean, that's way
Yes.
beyond a little tickle or bump.
Right. Those are full-time undercover employees, and that may be could be the one case they work for their whole life. I did one. I used what is referred to as a deep cover person. That's how he referred to himself. I think it just sounds cool, so he probably said it about himself all the time. But he was absolutely incredible, and I used him for a. Gonna be careful. A narcotics type thing. But we used him in an environment that he was just so amazing. I remember watching him. We were in a hotel room adjacent with the room that he was in, with the targets all monitored, and we were in the other room watching and listening. And it was like watching a movie in real time. He was just so good. In fact, I almost was like, maybe he's too good.
Yeah,
He
maybe.
just and the jury loved him. He actually came and testified in closed court, but listening to him testify about his background, his deep cover, and
Fabulous,
God,
huh?
it was one of those things of like I definitely had maybe an unhealthy man crush on him. He was just so awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a talent. There's no doubt about
Yeah,
it.
he had so much charisma, like you just naturally were drawn to him. He was just so engaging, right? Maybe that's a good word to put for
Yeah.
him.
And it worked
good
'cause
undercovers are.
because you got to fool people and get their trust. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
his
be
nature,
brave.
you would have never picked him as a cop. And he just, no, he looked
Yeah.
like a gangster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, glad somebody's out there doing that.
Well, one day we're going to ask you, what do you think of the movie Goodfellas when we start getting into gangsters?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, even the cops love that stuff, right?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, so, I mean, you ask most cops, it's probably one of their favorite movies, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
come on.